Good morning. I'm Frank Kaufmann. I'm the president of the Settlement Project. The piece I'm doing this morning I will call Our Great Land. It is largely anecdotal rather than purely analytical, which most of my recent podcasts have been. It's just the impact of things that happened to me yesterday that somehow had a deep and penetrating effect on me that has lasted until today as well. I want to start off this podcast by reading the inscription that is associated with the Statue of Liberty, which is in the harbor of my own hometown. It reads, and everyone knows it, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." This is the elegant and beautiful spirit of the United States, which has been a place of open doors and abundant opportunity for wave after wave after wave of immigration throughout its initial and founding moments until today. And not only waves of immigration, but trickles and streams of immigration. There are contributors to American life and society that don't have big historical patches or decades in which they've arrived and settled. There are the constant flow and influx and presence of immigrant communities and contributors to American life who come from all over the world, who have never been a part of some identifiable historical wave of immigration from that particular country or ethnicity. In the early morning yesterday, I was reading a spiritual figure, a spiritual teacher who was describing part of the effort that he made in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, having come to America from a foreign country and felt from his homeland he kind of looked afar at America as a great and noble and moral and courageous leading light for the people of the world. And he came here after the 60s and was struck by the stark difference to what he imagined America to be probably from textbooks or from meeting Americans in his country, American soldiers who had served and helped his country gain liberation. And instead he found in the country a widespread and increasing kind of sexual revolution and an assumption or kind of a cultural infiltration of what I myself will call moral relativism. It was a time when conventions of classical virtue were up for grabs and were just in a big muddle. So he brings to America believers from foreign countries to evangelize and to missionize in the United States of America as a kind of a desperate reaction to what he was experiencing upon arriving here, expecting to find a nation of strong families, of hard workers, of young men and women being raised by believers and strict parents and striving to become filial sons and daughters, take good care of the farm, take good care of the business, try to be the first member of your family who goes to college. This kind of America he expected, and instead came kind of post Nixon's Watergate and Woodstock and kind of sex in the mud, just something utterly entirely different from what he expected. And while he's describing this part of his effort to try to awaken America using foreigners, and he says, "They have endured persecution to help America because they devoted themselves for the sake of this nation. In the future, they will be the ones to inherit the tradition and sovereignty of America." So he's describing an immigrant community of people who came to serve America in in the arena of spirituality and morality and virtue. Later on in the day, we've had a very massive kind of winter snowstorm here, and the snow was 2 feet high and 3 feet in places where it blew into drifts. And so later in the day, I went out for a walk in the snow. It was a winter wonderland that all throughout my neighborhood people had built giant snow castles and giant snowmen or snow people that are bigger than themselves, 8-9 feet tall snowmen, and people were having the time of their life, and fathers were throwing their little one down into the drifts, and there's probably a moment of fear and a moment of delight to land safely and kind of fluff down in the thick snow. And it was a delightful, magical time out there. Everybody just out in the cold and bundled up. And as I got closer to all this frolic, I discovered that every single person out there were people from foreign lands, from their accent. There were a ton of Mexican accents, and there were a ton of Arab accents. Okay, that's a normal neighborhood in New York. Maybe there were some plain old everyday, several generation Americans out in the crowd, but I didn't see any. All I heard was Arab families running around, squealing, enjoying, and the dad saying, "Take my picture," like all of our little Mexican friends and Mexican families with the little ones running around. And I thought, my first and immediate thought was, these are accents from places where there is no snow, probably, or certainly not big, thick, heavy snows like this. And how exciting and so happy and wonderful, and how these people were giving me winter childhood back. The guy's 50 or 60 or whatever, the Arab guy. He's not a little kid, he's a guy, he gave me my childhood back by his own delight living in the snow. And this kind of became a metaphor for the text that I had read earlier in the morning about this evangelist who was trying to waken America from its moral slumber and wayward kind of chaos by bringing visitors here. And then later in the day, I have this kind of full circle of foreigners doing that for me. They didn't come here as missionaries to do anything for me, but just their sheer delight in the snow gave me the joys of childhood and fun. So here I am in a kind of an alpha and omega, an early morning kind of spiritual reading, and then later out kind of trudging through the wind smashing against my face, but suddenly finding myself at home with all these visitors. And then it kind of extended and spread into the realization that people who have come to America, they don't only come to evangelize, that's rare anyway, to evangelize and wake us up, or they don't only come to wake us up of our kind of crusty adulthood and give us the joys of childhood again. But I was struck by that virtually every single thing you gaze at in America is built by people who've come here originally as visitors or as immigrants and have naturalized here. And they've built our roads, they've built our buildings, they build our cars, they build our churches, they build our stores. That this country is nothing but an amalgam of everyone who has come since to become an American. And they plant themselves here and they raise their families here, and the country is full of these communities. Hindus, Greeks, everywhere you turn, there's another ethnicity. All are working, all are building this country, and all are proud of this country. And I thought, what a great country. There's so few that could be described in this way. So then these were the kind of flow of my thoughts. I naturally went to go find the beauty of the Statue of Liberty inscription, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to be free." And the beauty of this statement is that they're coming here with what they're yearning for is to be free, yearning to be free. I hope that if any of my listeners are finding trends in the United States where freedom seems to be at threat, that this is a direct contradiction to the primary impulse of immigration. They're not yearning to be rich. They're not yearning to be fed. They're yearning to be free. What America represents is freedom. Only secondarily, hopefully, is the opportunity to be hired and to earn a living and to work hard and to be paid fair wages and things like that. It's freedom. It's the Bill of Rights. It's the right to assemble, the right to speak, the right to worship. Freedom of the press. Tell me if you're seeing that now. We're not. We're not. And I felt bad for my Arab and Mexican friends building snowmen out in the yard with me yesterday, because they all came here and they went through a very difficult process to become American citizens. In the middle of the day, I was sent a communication from my alma mater. My doctorate is from Vanderbilt University, and the dean of the school sent out her message to all alumni, I guess. This dean happens to be, here's her title, Distinguished Professor of Womanist Ethics and Society. And her letter begins precisely with these words. It begins with a country being formed by taking the land of others because darker-skinned people were and are still judged as less than lighter-skinned people. This founding kernel of our country has grown over the years and has emerged at various times with supremacist values on full display. That's Vanderbilt University. It probably costs about 80 to 100 grand a year to go there. If a kid gets in there, parents are tickled pink, and they will spend 4 years. With this as the basic premise of how they will learn to live in their country. I looked up, and so I thought, what's the issue here? What is the basis of freedom, or what's an important element of freedom? And what is the difference between immigration and no borders? And the difference between immigration and no borders is simply law. It's simply law, that the people who immigrate here and who have built our country committed themselves to abide by the laws of the land which make freedom possible. Without laws, of course, no freedom is possible. One's safety is not even possible. So I went to look up the founding documents on law, because, on law. What is it? What is the relationship between the freedom that America offers, and what does America offer in terms of law? Why do people work so hard to go through the immigration process and to become Americans? And as the Statue of Liberty says, they're yearning to breathe free. And so what I found was the 14th Amendment. It reads like this. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, born or naturalized, okay, everybody born here, everybody immigrate here, are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. If you're born, you're subject to the law. Are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make nor enforce any law that shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So basically, because of the 10th Amendment and the existence of states' rights, the framers added the 14th Amendment to make sure that the radical equality guaranteed every United States person, whether born or naturalized, is protected in case the states would want to have laws that would abridge that equality. So it's a double protection. It's a double guarantee that every United States citizen, born or naturalized, is equal under the law. If you go to Wikipedia and you look to read about equality under the law, you'll find literally zero mention of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. The Wikipedia article under equality under the law starts with the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, and from there it has a section on liberalism, and from there a section on feminism. No mention of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. So this was my day, and this was my experience, and this is what happened to my heart. I read the speaking of an evangelist who tried to rescue America to the one he dreamt of. And then I read a letter to 100% of the alumni of Vanderbilt, kind of describing America as kind of born as the fountainhead of racist supremacy from the dean of one of the wealthiest and most preeminent universities in the United States. And I went out among my immigrant friends in the snow and had them give me my childhood love and experience back. And from that experience went on to feel how much immigrants have given this great land, and how that is the DNA of our land, of people coming here, making it their home, building their families, building their country, living together. And the initial inspiration which brings people to the United States, as encoded in our symbol of liberty, is the yearning to be free, not to be tired or weary or poor or downtrodden. The things which make us tired and weary and downtrodden are oppressors. They are people who exert the tools of power to prevent us from speaking freely, who exert the tools of power to prevent us from equal treatment under the law, who use the tools of power to prevent us from worshiping in our communities and loving our God and our traditions. It's those who would censor us, would block us, would stop us. And also, it's those who don't tend to or care for or protect the vulnerable in their societies. They don't care for the poor or innocent or average person. They allow them to live in danger. They allow them to live in a lawless state. They allow them to live among people who would kill, rape, plunder, and pillage. There's no freedom in living in a state with no laws. And for those who are perverting the absolute infinite beauty of the American immigration tradition by depriving ourselves and our guests and our incoming family of immigrants a land of laws in which we are equating these people who built our country with people who have no relationship and no commitment and no pledge to live under the law is an offense. It's hostile to the immigrant tradition of the United States. So this is, as I said in the beginning, this is an anecdotal piece. My heart wells up with love for my fellow Americans. They happen to be Arabs. They happen to be Mexicans. They happen to be Haitians. They happen to be Ukrainians. They happen to be Greeks and Poles. These are my fellow Americans. And our government and our culture should be sure to guarantee these people equality under the law, in fact, a land where laws even exist, and guarantee these people all the rights enshrined in the U.S. Bill of Rights. Thanks a lot for listening. Talk to you again soon.